Hello, I'm your storyteller for tonight. If you like this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and share where you're tuning in from. Now, settle in, get comfortable, and let the story carry you away. The shifting veil of Willow Creek Inn, the faded sign weathered by decades of coastal winds, read Willow Creek Inn. It was a quaint, almost picture-perfect Victorian structure, nestled amongst a thicket of ancient willows that wept their long, slender branches towards the murky waters of the nearby inlet. My name is Ilara Vance, and my life, up until that crisp October afternoon, had been a meticulously curated collection of verifiable facts and logical deductions. As an investigative journalist specializing in forgotten histories and local legends, I prided myself on dissecting the truth from the sensationalized, the plausible from the purely mythical. But the Willow Creek Inn, with its charmingly peeling paint and a pervasive, almost palpable silence, felt like the preface to a story I was ill-equipped to comprehend. My initial interest had been piqued by a cryptic old map tucked away in the archives of a forgotten historical society. It wasn't just any map, it was an almanac detailing ley lines and energy convergences, hinting at pockets of unusual activity along the New England coast. One particular convergence, marked by an ornate, almost sinister symbol, corresponded precisely with the location of the Willow Creek Inn. The inn's online reviews, a bizarre mix of effusive praise for quaint charm and unsettling whispers of strange occurrences, only fueled my journalistic curiosity. This wasn't a holiday, it was a deep dive, a personal quest to unearth the hidden truths that mainstream media often overlooked. As I stepped out of my rental car, the air was immediately different. It carried the briny tang of the ocean, but beneath it, a faint, almost metallic scent, like old copper mixed with damp earth. The willows seemed to sigh with a collective breath, their leaves rustling a hushed warning. Every instinct, honed by years of skepticism, screamed at me to turn back, to dismiss this as mere atmospheric suggestion. Yet the thrill of the unknown, the allure of a story waiting to be told, pulled me forward like an irresistible current. The front door, a heavy oak monstrosity adorned with tarnished brass, creaked inward with an ancient groan before I even touched it. A small, elegant woman with a cascade of silver hair and eyes that sparkled with an unnerving, almost predatory light emerged from the shadows of the foyer. Her smile was a masterpiece of practiced warmth, but it didn't quite reach the depths of those luminous blue eyes. "Welcome, Miss Vance," she purred, her voice a silken whisper that seemed to echo from the very walls. "We've been expecting you." My carefully constructed journalistic composure faltered. "Expecting me?" I managed, my voice a little less steady than I would have liked. "I booked online, anonymously." She merely chuckled, a dry rustling sound like autumn leaves skittering across pavement. "The inn has its ways, dear. Some connections run deeper than internet cables." She introduced herself as Mrs. Holloway, the proprietor, and effortlessly ushered me inside, her hand brushing my arm with a touch that felt strangely cold, despite her outward cordiality. The interior of the inn was a labyrinth of shadows and polished mahogany. Dim gaslight sconces cast long, dancing silhouettes across the walls, illuminating a collection of antique furniture that seemed to hum with unspoken histories. As Mrs. Holloway regaled me with the inn's storied past, tales of whaling captains, eccentric artists, and quiet scholars, my gaze was drawn to the grand staircase. Its banister, a masterwork of carved wood, was adorned not with roses or vines, but with intricate, swirling symbols that felt both ancient and eerily familiar. They were the same symbols from the old almanac, pulsating with a subtle, almost imperceptible energy that made the fine hairs on my arms prickle. "Your room is on the 3rd floor, Miss Vance." "The Raven's Perch," Mrs. Holloway announced, her smile tightening just a fraction. "Last door on the right. Dinner is at 7 in the main dining room. Punctuality is appreciated." There was an unspoken emphasis in her tone, a delicate thread of authority that bordered on veiled threat. As I ascended the creaking stairs, the silence of the inn pressed in on me. Where were the other guests? The booking confirmation had shown a full house. The only sounds were my own footsteps and the distant, rhythmic creak of the old house settling, or perhaps breathing. The Raven's Perch was a spacious room, tastefully decorated with floral wallpaper and a massive 4-poster bed draped in crimson velvet. Yet the charm felt superficial, a veneer over something deeper and more unsettling. I set my bags down, pulling out my concealed camera and audio recorder. My journalistic instincts were now screaming, not just whispering. This wasn't just a quirky inn, it was a stage, and I, it seemed, was the unwitting star. I began my investigation with the room itself. A quick sweep revealed no obvious hidden cameras or listening devices. But as I ran my hand along the wallpaper, I noticed faint, almost invisible lines beneath the floral pattern. The same ancient symbols, subtly woven into the very fabric of the inn. They were not just on the banister, they were everywhere, a silent, pervasive language permeating the structure. This was not decoration, it was inscription. This was a sanctuary, or perhaps a cage. Before dinner, I ventured outside, drawn by the allure of the inn's sprawling gardens. They were breathtaking, a riot of autumnal colors. But a deeper exploration revealed something truly unsettling. Hidden amidst the dying foliage were dozens of small stone statues, their features eroded by time, their blank, sightless eyes all fixed, accusatorily, upon the inn. They weren't garden gnomes, they were sentinels, silent witnesses to untold horrors. Their arrangement felt deliberate, a silent ancient ward, or perhaps a memorial. As I photographed them, a gruff voice startled me. "Enjoying the garden, miss?" A man emerged from the shadows, tall and lean, with a weathered face and hands scarred by years of labor. He wore a gardener's apron, his smile a mirror of Mrs. Holloway's, friendly, yet with a chilling absence of genuine warmth in his pale, intense eyes. "They're beautiful," I replied, forcing a smile. "But these statues, they're quite unusual." His smile flickered, a momentary ripple in the placid facade. "Ah, yes, family heirlooms those. Best not to pay them too much mind." His words were dismissive, yet laden with a deeper meaning. The inn has a way of keeping its history close. Before I could press further, a resonant bell chimed from the inn, the dinner bell. The gardener's smile returned, unnervingly wide. "Best hurry along now. Mrs. Holloway doesn't like to be kept waiting." His gaze lingered for a moment too long, a silent acknowledgement of my curiosity, a subtle warning. The dining room was an imposing chamber, lit by the gentle flicker of gas lamps that cast long, dancing shadows across the damask wallpaper. To my surprise, other guests were present, 5 of them, all seemingly middle-aged or older, their faces etched with a peculiar, almost unnatural serenity. Their gazes, however, were anything but serene. They watched me with an intensity that made my skin crawl, their eyes following my every movement like hungry predators. Mrs. Holloway appeared at my elbow, guiding me to an empty seat at a grand, polished table. "So glad you could join us, Ilara," she said, using my first name with an intimacy that felt entirely unearned. We were just about to begin. The meal was a lavish affair, a testament to culinary expertise, yet I barely tasted it. The conversation around the table was stilted, a strange tapestry of inside jokes and meaningful glances that deliberately excluded me. Every attempt I made to steer the conversation towards the inn's history, the mysterious symbols, or the other guests, was met with an abrupt change of subject, or a chilling collective silence that spoke volumes. They were a unit, a silent conspiracy, and I was clearly the outsider. As Mrs. Holloway brought out dessert, a blood-red sorbet, which she insisted was her special family recipe. The atmosphere in the room grew thick with anticipation. The other guests watched me, their serene smiles now stretched into something almost grotesque. The air seemed to hold its breath. I hesitated, a cold dread coiling in my stomach, but Mrs. Holloway's gaze was unwavering, an unspoken command. I took a cautious spoonful. The flavor exploded on my tongue. A rich, complex sweetness, unlike anything I had ever tasted, yet with an undeniable metallic tang, almost like blood. As I swallowed, a wave of profound dizziness washed over me, my vision blurring, the faces around the table morphing into grotesque, leering masks. "Are you all right, dear?" Mrs. Holloway's voice, now distant and distorted, seemed to emanate from a swirling vortex. "Perhaps you should lie down." I tried to stand, but my legs felt like lead, the room spinning violently around me. The last thing I saw before the darkness consumed me was Mrs. Holloway's smile, no longer warm, no longer practiced, but openly, terrifyingly predatory. I woke with a violent gasp, my head throbbing, the taste of copper still lingering on my tongue. The room was dark, illuminated only by the faint, eerie glow of the digital alarm clock on the bedside table. 3:33 a.m. I was back in the Raven's Perch, but how had I gotten here? The last thing I remembered was the sorbet, the dizziness, Mrs. Holloway's smile. As my eyes adjusted, a chilling realization solidified into stark terror. I was not alone. Shadowy figures, tall and indistinct, stood around my bed, their forms shifting and writhing in the gloom. I tried to scream, but my throat was a desert, producing only a dry, desperate croak. My limbs were paralyzed, heavy as stone, rooted to the bed. As the figures leaned closer, one of them spoke, its voice a dry, papery whisper that seemed to emanate from every corner of the room, from the very air itself. "She's perfect. The vessel is ready. The ritual can begin." Panic, cold and raw, surged through me, shattering the invisible bonds that held me captive. I bolted upright, scrambling off the bed and lunging for the door, my heart hammering against my ribs. It was locked, of course, the key nowhere in sight. The shadows advanced, their forms coalescing, writhing into impossible shapes, their whispers growing louder, more insistent, a cacophony of ancient, hungry voices. I pressed myself against the wall, desperately scanning the ornate ceiling for an escape, anything. Then I saw it, a small, almost imperceptible trapdoor, cunningly hidden amidst the intricate molding. Hope, a fragile, desperate thing, ignited within me. Grabbing the heavy wooden desk chair, I climbed onto it, pushing at the trapdoor with all my strength. It gave way with a groan, splintering slightly, and I pulled myself into a pitch-black, musty attic space. The whispers from below intensified, laced with a new note of anger and frustration. I crawled through the suffocating darkness, cobwebs clinging to my face and hair. The smell of dust and decay thickened the air. My hands, guided by a desperate intuition, found another trapdoor. This one led not to another room, but to a hallway I didn't recognize. The inn in the dead of night had transformed. The familiar polished corridors had twisted and turned into a disorienting maze, the elegant paintings on the walls now seeming to watch me with malevolent eyes as I stumbled past. I could hear chanting now, a low guttural murmur echoing from somewhere deep within the building, growing steadily louder. I turned a corner, heart pounding, and found myself at the top of the main staircase. The grand foyer below was awash in an eerie, pulsing red light. My chance at escape, the front door, was just below. But as I started down the steps, my breath caught in my throat. They were there. Mrs. Holloway, the gardener, and the other guests, all clad in deep crimson robes, intricately embroidered with the swirling gold symbols I had seen on the banister and in the almanac. They stood in a perfect circle in the center of the foyer, their faces upturned, chanting in a language that was both ancient and utterly alien. In their midst, resting on a pedestal carved from dark, unknown wood, was a pulsating orb of obsidian, reflecting the eerie red light. Mrs. Holloway looked up, her eyes meeting mine. The kindly innkeeper facade had vanished completely, replaced by something ancient, something hungry, something terrifyingly powerful. "There you are, my dear," she said, her voice now resonating with an unearthly power that vibrated through the very bones of the inn. "We've been waiting for you. It's time to take your place in the circle." I turned to run back up the stairs, but shadowy figures, indistinguishable from the ones in my room, materialized behind me, blocking my path. I was trapped, caught between an inescapable terror. "Why are you doing this?" I demanded, my voice raw with fear, yet a flicker of journalistic defiance still remained. "What do you want from me?" The gardener stepped forward, his face contorted into a cruel, knowing smile. "We need new blood, fresh energy, Alara, to keep our little arrangement going. The veil thins, and the old ones hunger. And you, my dear, with your keen mind and restless spirit, you are perfect." As he spoke, the symbols on their robes seemed to writhe, slithering across the fabric like living things, pulsating with the same red light emanating from the obsidian orb. The chanting grew louder, a deafening chorus that seemed to tear at the fabric of reality itself. I could feel a pressure building in the air, a pre-storm intensity, the very atoms of the inn vibrating with immense, unseen power. In a desperate primal surge of adrenaline, I lashed out, pushing past Mrs. Holloway, making a break for the front door. My hand closed around the cold brass knob, but as I twisted it, a searing pain shot through my arm. I looked down in horror. One of the swirling symbols, now glowing with a malevolent red light, was burning itself into my skin, searing my flesh. The door swung open, but instead of the familiar gardens and the winding road beyond, there was only swirling, inky blackness. It was a void, an abyss that seemed to suck all light and sound into its depths. I stood on the threshold, the chanting reaching a fever pitch behind me, the darkness beckoning, swirling, twisting before me. In that terrifying, surreal moment, I understood. I had a choice to make, a final, horrifying decision. I could surrender to whatever ancient ritual they had planned, become another cog in their horrific machinery, forever bound to this twisted place. Or I could step into the unknown, into that swirling void, facing whatever unspeakable horror lurked beyond, a desperate leap into an uncertain oblivion. With one last defiant look at the grotesque, triumphant faces of my would-be captors, a roar of primal rage escaping my lips, I made my choice. I stepped forward. The darkness enveloped me instantly, a cold, crushing embrace that stole my breath, my sight, my very sense of self. It was not merely an absence of light, but a cacophony of sensations, impossible colors, dissonant sounds that grated against the very fabric of my being, the feeling of being simultaneously torn apart and reassembled. I felt myself falling, or perhaps rising, through countless layers of reality, glimpsing fleeting images of impossible worlds, cities built on the backs of titanic beasts, forests of crystal, skies filled with stars that were also eyes. My mind, trained in logic and fact, screamed in protest, but the experience was undeniable, overwhelming. The symbols branded on my arm pulsed with a searing heat, anchoring me, yet also transforming me. Then, just as suddenly as it began, it ceased. I found myself not on solid ground, but suspended within a vast, shimmering expanse. Above, below, and all around me were nebulae of impossible hues, cosmic dust clouds that sang with silent wisdom. I was still Elara Vance, but irrevocably changed. My vision was clearer, sharper, capable of perceiving the faint, translucent threads that wove between realities. The brand on my arm was no longer painful, but a part of me, a mark of passage, a voice not Mrs. Holloway's, but one that resonated with the ancient hum of the universe itself, echoed in my mind. Welcome, Seeker. You have passed the threshold. The Willow Creek Inn is but one gateway. Many more await. I was not just lost in the woods. I was lost in time, lost in space, lost between dimensions. The inn, I now understood, was not merely a cult's lair, but a carefully constructed nexus, a point where the veil between worlds thinned, maintained by the Guardians, Mrs. Holloway and her ilk, who fed the old ones not with just blood, but with the very essence of perception, the fear and consciousness of sentient beings to keep the gates stable, or perhaps to keep them open. I never returned to my old life. How could I? The rules of that reality no longer applied. I was a wanderer now, a reluctant guardian, occasionally catching glimpses of other places, other realities, through the shimmering distortions of the cosmic canvas. Sometimes, in quiet moments between the whispers of the multiverse, I still hear the chanting, a distant echo from a reality I left behind. And I wonder, with a chill that goes bone deep, if Mrs. Holloway knew, truly knew, what stepping into that swirling darkness would entail. Perhaps her predatory smile was not just about the new blood, but about the legacy, about passing on a burden she herself could no longer bear. So, listen closely, for this is my warning, amplified across the fractured echoes of existence. Be careful where you choose to stay. Some inns cater to more than just weary travelers. They are thresholds designed to capture souls, to harvest fear, to serve as anchors for entities beyond our comprehension. And some vacations, my dear, can indeed last an eternity, transcending the very boundaries of life and death, leaving you adrift in an endless, unfathomable cosmic ocean. The truth is not just out there. Sometimes it's just beyond the locked door of your quaint hotel room, waiting for you to simply reach out and open it. And once you do, once you glimpse the true nature of reality, There is no going back. The veil has thinned, and the world you knew is just one of many, constantly watched, constantly sifted. This journey into the unknown has only just begun for me. But for you, for those still tethered to the illusion of a singular, safe reality, remember this. The most dangerous monsters are not always the ones that lurk in the shadows. Sometimes they are the ones hiding behind welcome baskets and syrupy, sweet smiles, waiting for you at the crossroads of existence, where the price of a peaceful night's sleep is your very perception, your very soul. And the inn, it remains always waiting for its next perfect guest. Don't be that guest. Your reality, your very existence might depend on it. Perhaps Ilara found answers in that endless darkness. Or perhaps she became part of the inn itself, waiting for the next guest. Legends say if you dream of a crimson dining hall, or hear the whisper of willow leaves at 3:33 a.m., the inn is calling you. And once it calls, you can't refuse. Until next time, keep your lights low and your doors locked.